Alright guys, so take a look at this. I'm going to take this one out today. This is a 2021 Harley Davidson Heritage Classic. Look at that seat, how comfortable it looks. Super nice. I don't know why, but I've been driving a lot of different bikes and this one just really appeals to me. Let's see, we're in gear. Let's see if I can figure out how to turn it on. Where is the key? I guess that's it. There is no key. It's just a couple buttons on the front. Alright, first impression. Without moving, this thing is smooth. No vibration at all. And the seat, just from sitting here, super comfortable. This is pretty nice. I like this windshield. It's about the perfect height right here too. This is like the windshield height on my bike. I actually have a 2007 Dyna Street Bomb. This feels like, you know, I'm actually 6'4", 230 pounds, and I'm finding that a lot of these bikes feel kind of small. This one feels like it actually would be not too bad. So normally I'm not a big fan of floorboards, but let's see. All right, first impression. Let's see if I can get this thing going here. It's always a little bit tricky starting out on a brand new bike because you have a new kind of balance, and you know the shifter, the balance, the brakes, the steering, everything is completely different when you first jump on a new bike. Usually takes at least a minute or two to kind of get the feel. So far it seems really nice around the corner. Really pretty nimble for that fairly big front tire. See if I can, the shifter's way up here. It's really Ford controls, which is pretty nice. I'm pretty stretched out on this bike for being so tall. Pretty nice. Has an interesting kind of an engine sound. All right, let's see here. All right, so first impression, it has a little bit of a roar to it, which I like. It seems like the gears aren't geared quite like some of the other bikes. It seems like it's maybe geared a little bit lower, where you can't go quite as fast in first gear. Maybe a little bit more torquey, which I kind of like. It'll be interesting to see. It's pretty easy to drive. A little bit of vibration in the handlebars, only when you give it gas. Not really any road vibration. Let's see. All right, so we're gonna try the highway. See if I can find the blinkers. Look over my shoulder here. So as far as the wind on this bike, I kind of like it. It has a good amount of, I can feel some wind around me, but it's not like, it's really smooth wind with that windshield. No buffeting as far as being real, you know, sometimes you get the choppy wind from the windshield. This one's pretty nice. So far we're going 55. Doesn't seem like we're going 55. It's kind of an interesting stance on this. It almost, you know, actually on my bike I have a sissy bar with a backrest. Alright, we're going 65. 65 on this bike is easy. Super easy. on this. You know, sometimes you actually you start going 65 on different bikes, and sometimes it's a little bit scary just because the bike doesn't feel very stable. This one feels pretty stable. I'd say it's probably like an 8 or a 9 for stability. I'd say probably the bike that was a little bit more stable than this one, maybe the Honda Goldwing, just maybe one notch up from this. But this is pretty nice. You can feel a little bit of the road, you can feel the road. It's not like you're like really floating on a pillow like on some of your bikes, but it's pretty smooth, I'd say. It's definitely smoother than most. So that windshield blocking a lot of the wind, but I still feel a little bit of wind up on my helmet, maybe a little bit around the edges, coming up my sleeves. Not too much up my sleeves though. So like on my dyno, I think my windshield is a little bit more narrow and I get more wind up my sleeves. This one, just the way the windshield's kind of designed, I'm not really getting that, you know, that really strong wind up my sleeves, which is kind of nice. And personally, I really don't like the sound of the engine. I would definitely change the muffler on this one. It is super quiet. All right, let's see if I can follow the pack here. Good around the corners, nice and stable. Has a really good turning. Any skinnier of a tire gets a little bit unstable on the highway. Any thicker of a tire and it's hard to turn. So I'd say this is probably the perfect size tire for the front. I was kind of looking at it before I took off. I think this is probably the optimum tire size. The seat seems really comfortable right now. No problems at all. It's funny, some of these seats kind of have like a step in the back of the seat, and on some seats the step in the seat is kind of hard and it hurts your tailbone. This one is super soft and your tailbone just kind of like melts right into the seat. It's pretty nice. I'd say it's almost up there with the probably the most comfortable seat is the one on the Honda Goldwing. That thing was like super cushy as far as the seat. But it kind of looked, it didn't really look like, you know, the classic style seat like this one. I think this one has a better looking seat. I'd say probably almost as comfortable as the Honda Goldwing as far as the seat. A little bit more vibration in the handlebars than the Honda Goldwing, especially when you're giving it a little gas, but not too bad at all. It's especially on the highway, this one's not really buzzy. I've seen some bikes that are kind of buzzy, like almost like you have this, almost like you're hanging onto a couple vibrators that are just kind of buzzing in your hands. I'd say probably the buzziest one that I've seen was the Honda African Twin. And I think maybe because it had the really aggressive front tire on that one. This one seems like I could lay it over pretty good in the corners, and I really still feel pretty confident in the corners. So the best one, I think the best one I've ever felt in the corners was the Honda Rebel 1100. For some reason that was just like super nice in the corners. So now that I'm kind of been test riding a lot more bikes, I have some basis to compare it to as far as, you know, some of the best performing characteristics. This is kind of has a weird kind of a stance to it where it almost seems like I don't know if my feet are forward enough, but it feels like my feet should be down a little bit more. And that's kind of the problem I have with a lot of bikes, just because I'm so tall. And on my Street Bob, I actually have really low forward controls that are just perfect. And I don't know how you could really change the controls on this one, if you could kind of move it to where your feet are a little bit more forward. But this is pretty nice. I'd say as far as like a factory stock bike, as far as comfort, drivability, and stability, and blocking the wind and everything, as far as what I would actually look for in a Harley Davidson, I would actually consider buying this one as just a stock bike. It's pretty nice. Seems like maybe there's a little bit more vibration in the handlebars than some. It's getting a little bit buzzy, which is kind of interesting. I think it depends on the RPM too. So when I shift to like a lower RPM, there's like almost no buzziness. So maybe I'm just riding at too high of RPMs. It gives you that kind of a buzzy feeling. And Harley Davidsons are really designed to give you a lot of power at low RPM. And I think that's why it kind of eliminates a lot of the vibration in the handlebars on a lot of your Harley Davidsons, compared to a lot of other bikes that are, you know, designed to have power at higher RPM. I think that's why you get a lot more vibration in the handlebars, because you can feel it up through the handlebars. Yeah, this is a nice bike. The mirrors are pretty much just stock Harley Davidson mirrors, which are always really nice. You know, you can see really good. As far as the heat coming up from the engine, I can't really feel any heat. Like, my legs aren't hot. Of course, we can try it, you know, just kind of standing still at the end of our ride to see if there's any kind of a heat coming up. But usually, you know, I haven't really felt any kind of severe heat coming up. I'm kind of getting behind you a little bit. So feels pretty stable at higher speeds. Pretty well planted. I'd say maybe 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. As far as being really planted on the road, maybe about 8 to 9, something like that. But it's kind of funny because on a lot of these bikes that I've been trying, there's always something that I really don't like that really keeps me from buying the bike. And on this one, it seems like there's nothing that would really keep me from buying it. Nothing that really, you know, there's really no pain in my seat or anything like that. Usually it's like the stability on the road and the pain in my seat, and let's see, kind of going into the wind now. This is interesting because we're going like on a headwind. I would say on this one, I don't know why, it seems like when you're sitting in an idle, there's less engine vibration sitting in an idle than most Harley Davidsons, almost no vibration at all. But when you're giving it gas, it seems like there's more. Alright, so I'm going to close my visor because we're kind of going into the wind and it's kind of getting a little bit crazy. So really no buffeting as far as kind of moving my head around, which is nice. Now sometimes you get that kind of the bobblehead from the buffeting from the windscreen. This one, not at all. As a matter of fact, there's not much wind at all. I'd say maybe there's wind like from my belly button, a little bit above my belly. all the way down to like my knees. But almost no wind on my face or my arms or anything like that. So riding with the pack. So we're actually, they have the Harley Davidson demo truck here. It's like an 18-wheeler with all these bikes, and you could just sit here all day and go back to back, take them out for a drive. It's pretty cool. And I'm just going through all of them. I think they have like 15 or 16 bikes or something like that. And I'm going from one to the other. Let me tell you, it's an eye-opening experience. You know, sometimes you look at a bike and you're like, man, that's beautiful. And then you drive it and you're like, I probably wouldn't buy it. Or I definitely wouldn't buy it. And then some of them are kind of unexpected. This one is, it looks like a really class, it has a really classic look to it. Like it could almost be in like a museum or something. That's what it almost has like a timeless look, where it would never go out of style. So this is a pretty good all-around bike, I'd say. The other thing on this, it seems like the suspension is a lot better than a lot of your other Harley Davidsons. I haven't noticed any big bumps at all. You know, sometimes when I'm talking, you'll actually hit a bump and it'll kind of take my breath away. I haven't noticed a single bump like that. I'd say this is probably the best suspension out of all Harley Davidsons that I've seen. These guys are really flying through these corners. This is pretty wild. Usually we don't drive this fast on twisty corners like this. These guys are pretty excited. All right, get an idea of the capability of the bikes. These guys are pretty good riders. Usually we don't have riders that could actually do curves like that. All right, we're gonna do some more twisties here. Yeah, so they want you to follow pretty close. But if they kind of get into a bind, I don't really like to follow too close, because if you have a car pull in front of you, you know, you kind of can all pile up on top of each other. So yeah, this is a pretty nice bike. I'd say from probably the one disadvantage that I've seen on this bike is it seems like the handlebars maybe have a little bit more vibration compared to other Harley Davidsons. Although the really nice suspension almost makes up for it. It's super smooth, which is pretty amazing. Does really good in the corners. Look at this. Really solid in the corners. Not bad at all. The one thing that kind of concerns me with this bike on really sharp corners is scraping the floorboards. That's one thing with the floorboards. The brakes, pretty good. You know, typical Harley Davidson, you have to press pretty hard, not too sensitive in the back. And if you use the back and the front at the same time, yeah, it's definitely good brakes. You could stop on a dime if you use both brakes. So I'm just gonna blow through, keep up with the pack here. One thing I do like about all Harley Davidsons is the auto-canceling blinkers. I absolutely love the auto-canceling blinkers. This doesn't seem too top-heavy either, which is pretty nice. Looks like we're all going here. We're like one big pack. We don't want to be split up. All right, we're going back on the freeway. That's kind of an interesting. This is one of the longer drives that I've actually been on. All right, let's get on it. Lots of power, lots of power. So I actually took the Road King for a test drive. I'd say this has more acceleration than the Road King. Seems like it has better acceleration. Not quite as much as you'd see like in the Pan America. The Pan America, that was that was almost scary acceleration on the Pan America. These guys are going pretty fast. We're going 65. So 65, I am getting a little bit of buffeting on my helmet, where it's kind of blurring my vision a little bit. Of course, we're going into the wind, so it's really strong too, which is kind of interesting. Then I'm actually getting that kind of buffeting. It's kind of like, you know, having your head in a paint shaker, where it kind of vibrates your head and your vision blurs. So it just happened just a little bit at 65 with a crosswind. Which it's kind of interesting because on my bike I've never experienced that buffeting on the windshield. So as far as the stability on the highway, I'd probably give it maybe a 7. I've been on bikes that were a lot more planted, going this fast, 70 miles an hour. And the Dyna Street Bob that I normally drive as my everyday driver, I'd probably give that like a 4, maybe a 3 as far as stability. I'd say maybe with the trike being the lowest that I've ever seen, the trike seems super unstable going 65 or 70 as far as everything I've driven. Yeah, so I kind of find myself kind of scrunching down a little bit, trying to get out of the buffeting from the wind. So that's one thing on this bike, a little bit of buffeting. I actually took I think it was the Street Glide CVO, which was like one of the worst, which kind of surprised me. I don't know if the windscreen was too small on that. I think you can upgrade to a taller windscreen on the Street Glide. I'd say that was probably the worst as far as buffeting. This is probably the next from just the 10 bikes that I've driven. Of course, most of the bikes that I drive don't even have a windshield, so there's no buffeting at all. You know, without a windshield, you just have the straight wind. I really like this. It's like a leather trim right on the gas tank. That's pretty cool. The clutch is pretty hard to pull in. On a lot of these Harley Davidsons, it seems like it takes quite a bit to pull in the clutch. As far as the friction zone, I'd say it has a pretty big friction zone. So, you know, some of them you put it out like a 1/4 of an inch and you're already all the way out. And this one, it seems like maybe like a couple inches, which is pretty nice as far as the friction zone. I find myself on this one, it seems like the clutch is probably one of the hardest clutches to pull. I find myself just kind of stopping at a stoplight, wanting to shift into neutral and give my hand a break because the clutch is pretty hard to pull. Which is kind of surprising. It's the first time I've ever really experienced that. As far as extreme slow speed stability, it's pretty typical. So I think the best extreme slow speed stability was actually like on the Fat Bob. Of course, there's pros and cons to that. It's really hard to turn those bikes. I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go. All right. That's a pretty nice bike. I don't know why, but on this one it seemed like my hands were going numb a little bit. I don't know if I'm just tense and grabbing it too hard. But it used to happen on my bike all the time. I get kind of tense. And then after you relax your hands, and then you don't get numb anymore. Just could be because I'm not used to this bike and I've got a death grip on the clutch side. Things. So this is pretty nice though. Looks good. And it rides good. The weird thing is the sound of the engine sounds so weird. I don't know what it is about the engine on this one. The other thing that's kind of interesting is it doesn't lean over very far. It almost seems like the kickstands, it almost feels like it's going to tip over because it's hardly leaning at all, which is kind of interesting. I didn't really feel a lot of heat coming off the engine. Gotta stop. There you go, guys. That is the Heritage Classic 2021 Harley Davidson. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.